Daf Yomi Tractate, Bava, page 71b at the top of the page, continuing from the Gemara asks, granted according to the one who said, this is the bottom of 71a, granted according to the one who said that products of a prohibited act are prohibited by Torah law, it is for, top of 71b with the words Lahachi, Patri, Rabbanan. This is the reason that the rabbis exempt the thief from the fourfold or fivefold payment when he slaughters the animal on Shabbat, as slaughter on Shabbat does not render the meat permitted for consumption, but according to the one who says that the product of a prohibited act on Shabbat may be eaten by Torah law, but is forbidden by rabbinic law, why do the rabbis exempt the thief when he appoints an agent to slaughter the animal for him, and the agent performs this action on Shabbat? The Gemara answers, when the rabbis exempt him from the fourfold or fivefold payment, they are not referring to the case where the thief's agent slaughters the animal on Shabbat. Rather, they were speaking of the rest of the cases listed in the Braita, namely, an agent who slaughters the animal for idol worship, and one who slaughters an ox that is sentenced to be stoned. The Gemara asks another question with regard to the interpretation of the Braita presented above, and with regard to Rabbi Meir, granted he maintains that the legal status of an act of slaughter, not fit for accomplishing its full ritual purpose, is nevertheless considered an act of slaughter. But why is the thief liable to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment when his agent slaughters the animal for idol worship? Once he slaughtered the animal a bit, at the very start of the act of slaughter, he has prohibited the animal with regard to deriving benefit. As an animal sacrificed to idolatry, when he slaughters the other part, it is already prohibited with regard to deriving benefit, which means that it is not an animal that belongs to its owner that he slaughters, and it is not an animal that belongs to him that he slaughters. Since deriving benefit from the animal is prohibited, it has no value, therefore there is no ownership. Rava said, this is referring to one who says prior to the slaughter that only with the completion of the slaughter does he worship the idolatry. Therefore, the prohibition does not take effect until that stage, which is also when the liability to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment is incurred. The Gemara raises a question with regard to another of the cases of the Braita. An ox that is sentenced to be stoned is an item from which deriving benefit is prohibited. Consequently, when a thief or his agent slaughters this animal, it is not an animal that belongs to its owner that he slaughters, and it is not an animal that belongs to him that he slaughters. Why does Rabbi Meir obligate him to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment? Rava said, with what are we dealing here? This is a case where the owners entrusted the ox to a bailey, and the ox fatally injured someone while in the bailey's house, and it was forewarned while in the bailey's house, and it was sentenced to be stoned while in the bailey's house. And the thief then stole it from the bailey's house and slaughtered it. Rava continues, and Rabbi Meir holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov that he also holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. He holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov, who says, even after the ox was sentenced to be stoned, if the bailey returned it to its owners before it was killed, it is considered returned, although the ox is now worthless, as no benefit may be derived from it. Since the bailey returned a physically intact ox, the owner has no claim against him. And Rabbi Meir also holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who says an item whose elimination causes financial loss is considered to have monetary value with regard to an item that is otherwise worthless if its elimination causes monetary loss due to the fact that it must be replaced. It is considered to be of value. In this case, although the ox is worthless and of itself. When the thief slaughters it, he prevents the bailiff from returning it intact to the owner and causes him to be obligated to pay the owner the value of the ox before it was sentenced to be stoned. Consequently, the thief must reimburse the bailey, as the ox effectively has value for that bailey. As we learned in a Mishnah 74b, Rabbi Shimon says in the case of sacrificial animals for which the owner bears financial responsibility to replace any of them with another animal if it is lost or if it dies, the thief is obligated to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment if he slaughters the animal, although one is generally not liable to pay the double payment for stealing consecrated items. Rabbi Shimon maintains that this case is different, since as a result of the animal's theft, the owner sustains a loss by being required to substitute another animal for it. Since the animal's loss has financial ramifications for the owner apart from any inherent value it has value for him. Apparently, Rabbi Shimon holds that an item whose elimination causes financial loss is considered to have monetary value. Rav Kahana said, I recited this halacha, according to which the Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Meir, in front of Rav Zvid of Nerda, and I asked him, is it correct to say that you can establish the Mishnah in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir and not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon? But isn't it taught in the last clause of the Mishnah that Rabbi Shimon exempts the thief from the fourfold or fivefold payment? In these last two cases, one can learn by inference that in all the rest of the cases in the Mishnah, apart from these two, Rabbi Shimon concedes that the thief pays the fourfold or fivefold payment. Rav Zvid said to him, no, that is not the correct inference from the Mishnah. Rather, by inference one can learn only that Rabbi Shimon concedes that the thief pays the fourfold or fivefold payment in the cases mentioned immediately prior to this one, specifically in a case where the thief slaughtered or sold the animal in order that it should be used for medicinal purposes or for feeding to dogs. Therefore, it can be correct to establish the Mishnah in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir and not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The Mishnah teaches if one stole an animal of his father's and then slaughtered or sold it, and afterward his father died, he pays the fourfold or fivefold payment to his father's other heirs. Rava raised a dilemma before Rav Nachman. If one stole an ox belonging to two partners and slaughtered it and subsequently admitted the theft to one of the partners, which means that he is exempt from paying the fourfold or fivefold payment to that partner in accordance with the principle that one who admits his own guilt is exempt from fines, what is the halacha with regard to payment to the other partner? The Gemara explains the sides of the dilemma. The merciful one states in the Torah, he shall pay 5 oxen for an ox, Exodus 21:37, which indicates 5 full oxen, but not 5 half oxen. Or perhaps when the merciful one states 5 oxen, this means that even 5 half oxen must be paid in a case of this kind. If Nachman said to Rava, the merciful one states 5 oxen, which means 5 full oxen, but not 5 half oxen. Rava raised an objection to him from the Mishnah. If one stole an animal of his father's and then slaughtered or sold it, and afterward his father died, he pays the fourfold or fivefold payment. But here, since his father died, and the thief has inherited part of the stolen animal himself, it is similar to the case of one who stole from 2 partners and went ahead and admitted the theft to one of them, in other words, to himself. In the case of the Mishnah, he is exempt from paying the portion of the fine that is for himself, and yet the Mishnah teaches that he pays the other heirs their portion of the fourfold or fivefold payment. Rav Nachman said to Rava, with what are we dealing here? With the case where his father stood against his son, the thief, in his trial, and the son was convicted for the theft and slaughter of his father's animal. In this case, the liability to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment was established before his father's death, and at that time the payment was 5 full oxen. Rava asked him, and if the thief had not yet stood trial before the father's death, what would be the halacha according to your opinion? Would he not be required to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment? If so, rather than teaching in the latter clause of the Mishnah 74b, if one stole his father's animal and the father died, and afterward he slaughtered or sold it, he does not pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. Let the Mishnah make a distinction within the same type of case as follows. In what case is this statement, in other words, that the thief is required to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment, said? It is when the thief stood trial in his father's lifetime. But if he did not stand trial in his father's lifetime, he does not pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. Rav Nachman said to him, indeed, the Mishnah could have mentioned that case. However, since the Tana of the Mishnah has to cite the first clause, which discusses one who stole an animal of his father's and slaughtered or sold it, and afterward his father died, he cites the latter clause as well, by means of a similar case. If one stole his father's animal and his father died, and afterward he slaughtered or sold the animal, the discussion between Rav and Rav Nachman occurred in the evening. On the following morning, Rav Nachman retracted his statement and said to Rava, the merciful one states 5 oxen, and this means that even 5 half oxen are included. Rav Nachman explained his change of mind, and the reason that I did not say this to you last night, to be continued,